John, welcome to Sydney Opera House.
Thank you.
You've been described as an American icon, and in fact, James Egan described you as the father of modern cinema.
Well, he must have been on LSD or something. I think maybe an icon to some disturbed group of people in each city, which is very nice, and wherever I go, there seems to be enough disturbed people to keep me in the icon business and make me, let me continue to make my living doing what I do without getting a real job.
In terms of being the father of modern cinema, why would he describe
I think he
you
must have meant underground cinema. I can't be the father of cinema, please.
Tell me about who were your influences when you first started out, when you were first given a camera. What were the movies that you enjoyed seeing?
Well, certainly at the very beginning, Russ Meyer. And no, at the very beginning when I was a kid, Walt Disney, because I love the villains, and I wanted to be the villains, and I always rooted for the villains. I wanted to be Captain Hook. I wanted to be the wicked stepmother in Cinderella. So I loved them. And then later, underground movies came out. So the Kuchar brothers, the great, George Kuchar just died. The Kuchar brothers were kind of like the Warner brothers of the underground. And Warhol and Kenneth Anger. But then I also was seeing sexploitation movies like Kenneth Anger and gore movies with Herschel Gordon Lewis, and then foreign films, especially Ingmar Bergman, because he always had dramatic, he had nudity, he had vomit, he had subject matter that was unheard of in Hollywood movies. So I try to put all three of those things together.
Is that what was going on with Dreamlanders? Was that the theory behind that group?
There was no theory behind it, but when we were making those movies, I liked all that. Divine always used to say, "No, please don't make me see Ingmar Bergman," because we would be tripping, and I would take him to Hour of the Wolf. Let me see Elizabeth Taylor movies. Can't we see movies about rich people? Mary Vivian Pierce was in my movies I went to most of all the art movies with. But we saw everything. We would go see the trashy drive-in movies and then see the Bergman Festival. And not that many people were seeing both, and I was putting the extremes of both of them together to try and come up, I guess in hindsight, I wasn't thinking this then, of a genre of exploitation films for art theaters, because my movies never did great in real drive-ins. They did great in the richest, fanciest neighborhoods, unfortunately, I'm embarrassed to admit. The worst taste did the best in the best taste neighborhood.
Why? How do you explain that?
Because it was an attack on good taste with humor, but you have to know good taste to appreciate the irony of celebrating bad taste. And if you just have bad taste, you don't get it.
And you said once that your parents had very good taste. What did you mean
they
by
taught
that?
me the rules fanatically of good taste, but I'm glad they did. My parents were anything but fans of exploitation, so they were horrified by the movies I was making. But they knew that I wanted to do it, because you're supposed to go to school to learn what you want to be. I should have quit in 6th grade. I knew what I wanted to be, the Pope of Trash.
You enjoyed also, or you found The Wizard of Oz as one of the films that also inspired you because of The Wicked Witch. What was
everyone loves The Wizard of Oz, but I'm the only child that thought it had a sad ending when she had to go back to that stinky black and white farm with that dreary aunt, when she could live with gay lions and winged monkeys and magic shoes. And I've always wanted to do the sequel, where Dorothy comes back and she keeps talking about Oz, and they put her in a mental institution, give her shock treatment, and then she tries drugs and nothing works except poppers, and then she goes back for 3 days and sees that the Scarecrow has written a book called Friends of Dorothy, and the Tin Woodman is a yoga instructor, and the Lion's a drag queen named Aurora, and he gives her the Wicked Witch's old outfit, and Dorothy comes back and starts cross-dressing as the Wicked Witch and opens a gay bar called the Yellow Brick Road. How's that?
Sounds very good. John, I'm sorry, I'm just using... You recently wrote a book called Role Models about the various influences in your life, and there was that very entertaining account of meeting Little Richard.
It wasn't so entertaining when it happened. It might have been entertaining to read it, but it wasn't so happy, because I always loved Little Richard. I grew this mustache in homage to Little Richard. I played all his music. I remember when I put on the song Lucille in my grandmother's house, and he was screaming, and the antiques rattled, and they never heard a black man screaming in my grandmother's house, right, singing Lucille. And but when I met him, he had written a biography where he talked about being in drag and talking about mailing people bowel movements. I thought, we did that too, hi. But when I brought it up, he was very defensive and said that he was religious, and his religious followers couldn't know that. And so then he said, well, you can't leave. And I thought, well, I can, because his bodyguard I could have beat up. really. And then it was awkward, but I still loved Little Richard, and that was a long time ago, and I hope I get a chance to meet him again.
Was it difficult going back and meeting and talking to these people? Did you have the same view of them as you did from afar? Because you met Johnny Mathis.
Well, Johnny Mathis I hadn't met, and I, when you write a book, you get to be nosy. You get to call people and say, "Can I come over?" And it was hard to get Johnny Mathis to say yes, but once he did, he was lovely. And Little Richard I had met a long time ago, and that was for Playboy magazine. Actually, I was supposed to do that, and so. A lot of the people I didn't meet that I wrote about, too, you don't have to meet your role models, but you have to know about them, and you have to think about them a lot because they gave you the freedom by their extreme lives to try to become who you want to be yourself.
Characters like, or role models like Lady Zorro, what impact did she have on you?
Well, Lady Zorro, we used to watch, Divine and I used to go to the strip club, and she was there, but she was really butch. She looked like Johnny Cash, and she just came out nude and said to the men, "What are you looking at?" And we thought, well, this is not exactly Gypsy Rose Lee here. And so I wrote about her in one of my books, and then she died, and I read the obituary that she had a daughter. I thought, she had a daughter, right? She was really ahead of her time. So I called her daughter, and she said, "My mother loved you." I thought, she knew who I was. I never even knew that, and read the books and stuff later. And so I went and interviewed the daughter, who told me a harrowing story of what it was like to grow up with Zorro as her mother. And then you realize, well, don't lesbians have the right to be bad mothers? If you're for gay marriage and for gay rights, well, why do we have to be good always? But it was interesting. She was a terrible mother, a really bad mother. But the daughter turned out fine because she knew her mother really loved her. So that's what was so interesting, to find the daughter and tell this horrible story about what it was like to have Zorro as her mother. And I never knew ever that it was just somebody I liked when I was a kid, that her image was very strong in my head to go this far. And then the daughter, once the book came out, had a new husband. She got divorced and got married, and she hadn't told her husband. The new husband said, "You got to read this." And he said, "Well," but she said he responded very well to her, but at least she didn't have to tell the whole story because she told me the whole story of Zorro, her mother.
Do you find writing hard?
No, it's not easy. I mean, I write every day, and I start at 8 a.m. and at 7:59 I hate it, and 8:01 I'm doing it. Hard? Yeah, writing's hard, but it's not. It's what I do, so. Yeah, hard. What do you mean? I can do it, but it's not. I don't just wake up like supposedly Barbara Cartland just went in and said, "Chapter 1, blah, 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 blah," and just did it on a tape recorder and did the whole book. No, I wish it was like that.
When Hairspray made such an impact, did it shock you?
Well, it made an impact a couple different times because it made it when the movie came out, and then Divine died, which was a terrible impact, so I don't remember really. And then the musical, yes, it was amazing. It won the Tony Awards. It changed my life. And then they made another big movie after that, which also changed my life. So, yes, I just thought it was my next movie. I didn't sit down to write a movie that was any more commercial or just a big girl who fights for integration was a good high-concept movie.
When it garnered so much success, did it change the projects that you could do in any way?
Well, no, actually. I can't get a movie made right now. So, Hairspray, no, not my movie career so much. It got Crybaby made into a musical. It helped that. And when I made the original Hairspray, way before the musical or anything, when it came out, it was a hit. Yes, it was the only time all the studios wanted to make my next movie, and I made Crybaby with the Universal Studios and Imagine Films. So yes, that was the only time. But Serial Mom was made through a studio. They all were made in the Hollywood system. I mean, even the one fruitcake I'm trying to make now, I got a development deal to write it and everything. So yes, they've all been made in the system. Up to Polyester, I financed myself, and my father lent me the money in the beginning, and I paid him back every penny of it. And then I borrowed it from different people. And pot dealers are great because they don't want, you're quiet about it. But mostly it was just friends I borrowed it from and paid them all back. People still get money investing from my early movies. And the people that were in Pink Flamingo, some of the main people in it, even their relatives got money still from it.
When you look back at Pink Flamingos now, how do you view it?
Well, I had to watch it in L.A. This book just came out of collected interviews by me. So they had this party for it at USC University, and they showed Pink Flamingos. And I haven't actually sat and watched it with an audience I think I was shocked for the first time. But I must admit, it was all 20-year-olds, and they were reacting the same way that 20-year-olds reacted in 1972. They were freaking out, going, "Wow!" So it still works. It still works. It hasn't been diffused. It didn't get nicer. Maybe it got worse.
You talked about, at the time, I've heard numerous interviews, you said comments about Pink Flamingos that you were angry, and then other times there was another comment that it's a baby film. It's a film that we're all babies, the way we were behaving. And
maybe. I think children like Pink Flamingos. I've seen children watch Pink Flamingos. I'm sure it's illegal. But except for the sex stuff, Divine, you know, you look at the sellerless books, it's all about gross out battles and snot and vomits. This was that too. I mean, it was who could be the most ridiculous gross out thing. So and Divine, children liked Divine. They thought he was like a clown. They weren't frightened of him. Divine was made to scare hippies, but not children.
Were people scared of you?
In the beginning, they might have been scared of all this because they thought we were documentaries and we lived in the woods in that trailer. People thought that. They used to say, "Do you still live in the trailer?" I said, "Well, did you see the rest of the movie? It burns down at the end, so no." But it is interesting that where that trailer is, for 20 years, that trailer lay in the woods there, the burned up thing. No one ever took it away. But now it's a suburban housing development, and there is a ranch home right there where that is. And I always wonder if the kids in the bedroom feel vibes coming up, the bad teenagers that live there. If they only knew like an Indian burial ground, that underneath it is the trailer from Pink Flamingos.
John Waters, thank you.
Thank you.